Recently, I read a pretty alarming article on Forbes citing some of the test results from this new generation. It showed that only 15% of eighth graders were proficient in US history. In contrast, it was about 25% had that same level of proficiency with civics and geography. And again, to compare, 35% were proficient in reading and writing. None of those numbers are great, but especially the lowest one being that 15% for US history. Why is this? I've really been thinking about it, and I don't want this to be just a very negative video. I do have some suggestions, some tools that can help you with this, but I was thinking about it, and why is this happening? Because if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity, right? And I think like maybe most parents, I know for me, kind of one of my silly worst nightmares is that my kids will end up on a Jimmy Kimmel skit or one of those YouTube videos where people are asking questions, how many stars on a flag, name what a country. And, there are real examples out there where you ask people who won the Civil War and they'll say the South. They can't give you the name of three countries. They don't know the difference between a city and a state. So let's talk about it in this video. I want to share with you 7 reasons why I think this is and this problem is getting continuously worse and what we can do as parents to solve this. So let's get started. Hi there, my name is Karen, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to help families achieve sustainable and enjoyable homeschooling, and that's very important today when there are so many things fighting for our youth's attention. And so part of it is that you want to give them a great education. You want to put really great tools in front of them, but you also have to sort of get creative and in ways that yes, they'll learn the information, but that they will also retain it, that they won't just forget it. So here are 7 reasons why I think today kids are doing really poorly when it comes to US history. Number 1 is the emphasis on curriculum. So in schools, we know this, that there's a strong financial incentive, right? A lot of the funding that comes from the federal level, they have these certain criterias and tests and metrics that they use, right? And that they have to reach, they have to hit in order to get that recognition, to get that funding. And the emphasis is going to be on reading and writing, hence the numbers, right? 35% here, 15% here. And of course, reading and writing are very important. If they're not fluent readers, then that's obviously going to hinder them in all academic subjects, right? So I understand that. But just the prioritization of certain subjects and the emphasis on curriculum, like it has to be done this standard way, I think really hurts when it comes to a subject like US history. So that's problem number 1 is the emphasis on has to be curriculum and it has to be prioritized in this way. Number 2 is teaching methods. So think about today how people are learning and retaining information, because that's the important thing. How are companies, businesses, products, how are they marketing to you for you to be aware of them, for you to be curious about them, and then to take you down the funnel, right, to some kind of action, call to action. And then you compare that with maybe some of the traditional methods of how history is taught in school. You can compare them, that they are very different. And so this is not helping to have kids be curious about history. And also, if they do learn it or just enough to pass a test, it's certainly not enough for them to retain it. So that's the big difference, is the teaching method. So that's another big reason. Number 2 is the teaching method. Number 3 is information overload. So there is no other generation in history that is bombarded as much as this generation with constant information, right? Constantly bombarded with it. And the thing is, our reticular activating system, it only holds, about 7 things at a time, even though there's billions of bits of information around us at any given point. And you have to understand too that that information that they're being overloaded with, it's something that a lot of times they're searching out for. They're seeking, companies and apps, algorithm has gotten very good at this, at only showing you things that you're interested in, that you initially searched for, to keep you on the application longer. And so we're more and more in our echo chambers, and you're just seeing more of the same. And so you're not going to really get a lot of exposure to other things. That's actually another point. I don't want to get into it, but just the general topic of information overload. And so a lot of things are competing for their attention. US history might not be really high on that list. So number 4, back to along the same lines, is limited exposure. Because they're getting just more of whatever they're searching for or interested in, they limit the opportunities to expose themselves to other topics such as US history. And I think this is an unintended consequence that maybe people don't realize, that advocate for pulling down, taking down, doing away with historical sites and monuments, because those things do kind of put it on kids' radar and ask, oh, why are those faces in that mountain? What does that statue mean? What do those cannons in this field mean? It sparks curiosity for them to want to research it on their own. So the more that we take down these things, and the more that they use services, applications that just feed them more of the same, more of what they're into, the more limited exposure they are getting to topics like history. Number 5, and these are in no particular order, or else I think I would put this as number 1, is the perception of relevancy. They do not see how this applies to their daily life right now. Okay, who won the Civil War? What does that have to do with my life right now? And so they're not seeing how learning about history is going to give them the proper context to see and understand how cultures are being shaped today. So if we want our kids to have better proficiency with US history, this is one area we really need to focus on, making it relatable to their day-to-day life. Now, understanding it, how, yes, it's part of history, it's past, but it's also cyclical and can also come in really handy when discerning the times and what's happening now and what can happen in the future. And number 7 is that most textbooks or public school approach to US history just very cut and dry. Here's the facts, here's what happened, here's who won, and moving on, answer the questions and move on to the next section. And history can be very complex, and there's different perspectives and nuances. And so if we dive into that, it makes it a little bit more interesting and engaging for students, instead of just seeing it as that, very dry black and white. When you approach it in that way, just very simple narratives, it's almost like a foreign language. They have no real context to build it into their current lives, and they're not practicing it, right? They just see it as these facts, as something to memorize, and that's it. It's like a foreign language. They're not utilizing it, right? And if you don't use it, you lose it. So by making it more interesting and more complex and thought-provoking, they're going to retain it better than, again, just viewing it as like this foreign language of just things that you memorize, recite, pass a test, and then move on. So those are the 7 main reasons why I think that only 15% of 8th graders are proficient in US history today. And let's face it, it's not getting any better as you get older either. So what can we do as parents? Whether you send them off to school or you homeschool, you really have a lot of control over this too, in shaping the narrative and helping them to be curious about history and understanding it better. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that because of all of this that I discussed, I'm a big fan of the Tuttle Twin series. I have all of their products, and I ordered the first history book, America's History, Volume 1. This is 1215 to 1776, and I did a video review on that one. And so now they're coming out with Volume 2, which has all the juicy stuff, all the good stuff, 1776 to 1791. This one's coming out now. I think you can pre-order it, but it should be delivering soon. And so this is the perfect example of how to counteract all of those issues that I talked about. Because here's the thing. This isn't like a dry textbook. It has, I like to think of it as, yes, Ethan and Emily, familiar characters in the family. The parents, the family, the adults in their lives are taking advantage of teachable moments in Ethan and Emily's life to explain history in a way that they can understand. It's very digestible and also relatable and applicable in daily life, right? Taking things that's what it does so well. Taking these big picture concepts and breaking them down so that they can really understand. That's why these original books were so incredibly popular, because they took these big picture ideas, like how do you explain the Federal Reserve to a 10 or an 11-year-old, right? Or they took these economic books like The Law by Frederick Bastiat and made them so digestible and easy for kids to understand. For example, this one is based off Atlas Shrugged, but again, made it in such a way that was so easy for kids to understand and see how it relates to their daily life. So think of this as this, but like on steroids, right? Yes, you could see it as maybe commentary on history, but along the way, there are timelines, there are highlights, more about certain events, more about certain people. There are special notes sprinkled across the book from the authors, Elijah and Connor. Again, more about let's talk about this, and timelines, just making it really easy for kids to understand. And again, break it down, be curious about it, and be able to apply it to their daily life. I was looking through, book 2, I was looking through all of it, and I learned a lot. And I thought, wow, this is just such a cool way. I wish I had this when I was younger. I would have really been more interested in history had I had tools like this. I learned about, when the states were ratified, maybe some conflicting information on that, some of the women that had part in the Revolutionary War that I never heard of before. And in case you're like me and you already have all of the books too, it'll highlight in certain places how, this book really ties in with this, and again, applying it to modern life. And I can't think of many sources that offer something like this where, yes, it'll talk about, for example, Edward Snowden, decentralized and centralized power, again, in a way that kids can really understand. And when you talk about retention, I have seen this with my kids, even books that I read aloud and the kids were sort of younger and I didn't think they'd really remember it. Later on, maybe seeing inflation or seeing this or that, they'll be like, hey, this is just like, and then recite something from the book. And right now they have a special promotion that everyone who pre-orders the book is automatically entered into a giveaway for a vacation of a family of 4 to Boston to see all of the historical sites, which I think that's just every homeschooler's dream, right? Is to have a vacation like that where you're also learning and visiting all of these historical sites. I know for me it is, at least. Maybe I should just speak for myself. And if you are curious about the Tuttle Twins, I have tons of videos on this channel. I have every single product that they have come out with. I have an interview with the author on this channel as well. And just to share with you some of my favorites, of course, I love the original books, right? My favorites are The Law and The Golden Rule and The Creature from Jekyll Island. I could probably go on and on, but of course, I love the books. The teen books, the Choose Your Own Consequences, are really fun. They're a teen version of Ethan and Emily. And it's just like, remember your Choose Your Own Adventures. There's different scenarios and you pick one or the other. And I think my kids have like reread this so many times because of course they're going to try to get all of the different scenarios, right? So they'll read this multiple times. Even the ABC books for toddlers. I don't have toddlers anymore, but I still wanted to buy them because it's kind of funny, right? It's not, well, yeah, you can read them to toddlers, but it's the ABCs of Liberty, of the American Revolution, and my favorite one is the economics one. Although I like I like them all. But anyhow, yeah, like F is for Federal Reserve, and O is for opportunity cost. And what I'm currently reading right now are the guidebooks, especially logical fallacies. I love that it explains, what the straw man argument is, the appeal to authority, all those different types of arguments, and how to be aware of them, yes, understand them, and then how to continue the conversation without getting sidetracked or derailed or it blowing up, right? I think this is a great book. Every teen should read it. And Courageous Heroes is another one. inspiring entrepreneurs, people like famous Amos, or the ones, the guys who started Airbnb, just everything from the past, like George Washington Carver, to Elon Musk today. You'll find that here. And Beware of Your Bias, I think, is also really interesting and great for teens to read. I love all the products. I love all of them. And so I knew I was going to enjoy the history book. Tools like this, I think, are the answer to 15% of eighth graders being proficient in US history. That's kind of a scary number. We need to do better, and we need better tools. We need better methods, and I think this plays into that. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I think you would like this playlist where I talk about all the other products from the Tuttle Twins, or the YouTube algorithm thinks you would like this video instead. So whichever one you choose, I will see you there. Bye for now.